Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update. And this time we do actually have a little Avatar Studios news update. It is not anything too significant, but I think it will give us a little bit more perspective on something we previously learned about Avatar Studios, and that is that the movie apparently is going to be in CG. So I'll use this video as a little bit of just a recap on what do we actually know about Avatar Studios, and we'll go over the small pieces of information we got from some Viacom CBS jobs listings that are for Avatar Studios or Avatar related positions. So what we have here on the official Viacom careers page is Look of Picture TD. I think that's technical director for Avatar Studios. So you don't see this listed too much, so this is actually relatively significant. We have Motion Capture TD for Avatar Studios, and then there's also this one, Coordinator Global Franchise Planning, which does mention Avatar here as one of the IPs that they're involved with. So that one doesn't really talk too much about it. We can mention some of the stuff about, you know, the planning of the franchise, I suppose, that's listed there, but for the most part it's these two that actually tell us some interesting things. So the information that I think it's important to keep in mind before that is what we got a few months ago. Is there a date on this here? September 2nd. So yeah, it was actually quite a few, like 3 months ago we found this out. And again, this was not exactly an Avatar Studios like news announcement or anything like that, because it was just part of this random like article, and Brian Robbins happened to mention Avatar as a response to one of the questions, and he says big projects we're working on the theatrical front is Avatar. We signed a deal to bring the original creators of Avatar back into the studios. They started Avatar Studios, and they're well on their way in development on a series of CG films and a new Avatar series. So CG films was the big thing, because that added on to information we knew from before, the initial announcement, which was that the first project is an animated theatrical film starting production this year. Here's a Deadline article from the announcement. That's kind of what confirmed it, I suppose. Animated theatrical film starting production later this year. So now we sort of know that's CG, and then these job listings will give us a little bit of extra information on that. So let's go into it here. So Look of Picture TV, this I suppose is the one that mainly gives us that information. So this is just about Nickelodeon Animation Studios. Even though it says Avatar Studios here, most of this stuff seems to be a little bit more generic, but just the fact that it says Avatar Studios, I suppose we have to read into it a little bit. So you can see here it just describes the role, efficient transfers of CG data between the various sites, responsibilities, develop and maintain an outstanding and customized look for the show that will require the integration of traditional 2D and CG elements. So there you go, in terms of what's going into production soon is going to be the movie, which they said is CG. So the CG part makes sense, but now we're finding out that, oh, it is going to incorporate 2D elements in as well. So it's going to be more of a blended style here. So that's very interesting, in that there was a decent amount of negativity about the CG announcement, because obviously Avatar is known as a traditionally 2D animated series, and we don't want to miss that. So this at least gives you the impression that they are working very hard to make this, I suppose, fit in with everything as well as they can, while I suppose still using sort of, I suppose, the benefits of CG. But yeah, they're talking about, you know, outstanding and customized look. So they're not just going for some sort of generic style, and that makes complete sense. Brian, I don't think, would allow them to do a very generic CG style. He would want this to be the best it can possibly be. So shader lighting, techniques they're talking about here, the customized look once again. So again, kind of unique look that they're going for here. A lot of this is kind of just like generic kind of job listing stuff of just the basic idea of what is actually happening here. You know, you could see, you could read it all here yourself. Experience, you know, qualifications here, but for the most part, like, it is really just the stuff from these kind of first two kind of that are the main takeaways here, and really like 2D and CG for the obvious thing that's happening first with Avatar Studios. That's really what the news is. I think this motion capture job, again, it's specifically for Avatar Studios, is mainly just about, you know, develop and support tools required to build and maintain a motion capture library. You're going to need motion capture, I suppose, for CG, which it could actually work out relatively well, because what they used heavily on Avatar and Korra was, I think, like doing sort of like reference kind of capture of martial artists, and then the animators would kind of go off that. But motion capture using CG with 2D, I suppose, might allow them to do some really amazing stuff with the martial arts. So, you know, this could be a benefit, depending on how it goes. But, you know, again, the main takeaway here is just that, okay, mocap is going to be used on Avatar Studios projects. Makes sense. This coordinator global franchise planning, like I said, is mainly just, you know, you get to work with IPs like Avatar. It is sort of interesting, you know, support the development of multi-platform marketing plans and strategies, project balancing multiple campaign components and coordinating execution across multiple channels to raise brand awareness, TV and digital ratings, and consumer product sales. Assist with distributing content, reviewing communications, coordinating information, and sharing across all lines of business. So this is sort of what we're, I suppose, experiencing a little bit like right now with Avatar, is that it is being very heavily kind of, I suppose, marketed, merchandised, but the communication about the new stuff isn't really there right now. So I suppose as we switch into the Avatar Studios stuff feeling a little bit more real, maybe we'll see a little bit more mention of the whole Avatar Legends style of thing and so on. But you know, this is a good thing to know, in terms of just that they're really heavily planning franchise management style stuff for Avatar Studios, I guess. But like I said, beyond that, the only other information we have is really what they said in the February announcement earlier on this year, that Avatar Studios is going to produce new series, spin-offs, films, and short-form content. We now know a little bit more about the animated theatrical film. The whole Avatar shows coming in the next 2 years is again part of the press release, where they said there'll be a lot of content coming to the platform in the next 2 years, including this, and Avatar. So that's what they said. Obviously, these two things are at this point maybe a little bit questionable as to whether they will happen or if we'll know about them, because the fact that they're only just now putting out the sort of, you know, the call effectively for kind of people in key positions like this makes it seem like they're only just about getting up to building up to sort of proper production of this thing. So it may just barely be starting production by the end of the year, if not early next year. We'll see how that pans out. Avatar show's coming in the next 2 years. Again, that's like 2 years from February 2020. No, it's 2 years from February 2021. So February 2023, I struggle to believe that something will actually come out before then, but I suppose what they mean by 2 years is like the kind of 2 to 3 year kind of gap style thing. We'll probably at least maybe know more information, maybe have a trailer for whatever's coming by the time we get to February 2023. But I'm not sure they'll maybe hit that mark, given how much, you know, time has already gone in this year and we haven't really heard much. Beyond just this, all we really know is that Jeremy Zuckerman's part of Avatar Studios, Joan Hilty is part of Avatar Studios, and everything else has pretty much been, like Mike and Brian sort of rephrased some stuff that they said in the initial announcement as like the response on the podcast. Jeremy Zuckerman on the podcast just mentions that, you know, he likes what he's seen so far, and that's kind of really been it this year. So again, I think most of the expectations should be on next year. Hopefully we get like the announcement of whatever the movie actually is, because I think that's what we're kind of waiting for at this point. Are we going to be told when the movie goes into production, and like will it actually get like an announcement with like some sort of a visual to go with it, or is that just going to secretly happen in the background and then we'll find out about it when they're ready to sort of actually talk about it? That's where the sort of communication aspect needs to definitely sort of improve, in that I don't really get the impression that a lot of the sort of Avatar social media accounts have too much of a sort of like inside track on this, and I'd honestly be very surprised to ever see like the official YouTube or the official social media accounts ever like break new news on any of this stuff. So stuff like that's probably where we need to change going forward to make things like the avenue of where news comes from feel a little bit better. But yeah, that's I think basically been it in terms of just like a recap of what we sort of know about Avatar Studios. Little bits of new information, like I said, the main thing being that it looks like the movie will be CG, but it'll be blending 2D and CG elements together, which we've seen before, of course, in ATLA and Korra, stuff like, you know, the Colossus, and there were moments in Avatar that also used it. But this, I suppose, is going to be, I suppose, a much more modern attempt at it. The fact that, you know, it was specified as being CG primarily before, but now it's 2D and CG. We'll see how exactly that works. Is that just going to be sort of like, I think the main example of this is that kind of Into the Spider-Verse movie, I think, that kind of used that sort of style. I suppose the Dragon Prince, you could also say, is sort of like that with its style. That it kind of feels like, you know, it is ultimately CG, but they do enough to it to make it seem like it is 2D. And I suppose that's maybe the kind of shaders maybe coming into effect there. So, yeah, in the comments, I suppose, what are your thoughts on this? I suppose twofold here. One, the mention here of, you know, 2D, CG, you've got mocap here, they're getting more people on board for like franchise management stuff, but also just they are now sort of actually putting out public positions that like people can apply for at this point of the year. Where do you think that kind of puts us in terms of the like really vague schedule we have for Avatar Studios? But either way, we got some news sort of at last after a bit of a gap of not really hearing anything. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.